Hey, it's a late evening, I guess early morning on the West Coast. Oh, hi, Lori. How you doing? Someone's already joined. This is cool. Um, just watched Kimmel on the West Coast. It's doesn't come on to 11:30 our time out here. So we see it 3 hours later. I avoided YouTube because I actually wanted to sit down on. I subscribe to Hulu. I don't know for how much longer because boy, they're getting fucking expensive. $99 a month, $99 a month for ad-free TV that is just simply false marketing. They have no legal rights to determine whether the ads are or are not shown on much of their content because they don't own the content. They just redistribute the content. So, like, for example, all the live sporting events and some of the local stuff, they have to show the commercials because they don't have any rights to not show the commercials. They do have the rights for adult animation, Adult Swim, Comedy Central stuff. Like I'm a huge fan of Rick and Morty, and I always record Rick and Morty so I can play it back later with no ads and uncensored because it's really funny to hear Morty and Summer swear. I don't know why that cracks me up so much, um, but they have the license to do that. So if you watch it live, you still get the bleeps and ads on like season premieres and stuff. But the only time I see it the way they sell it is I watch it on the DVR later. Um, so yeah, I watched Kimmel tonight. It was my first Kimmel show. I don't think I've ever watched one of his episodes. It's still playing with the sound down. Sarah McLaughlin is singing her song. Kind of more of a heavy metal, hard rock. I'm wearing my Ginger protest Ukraine t-shirt tonight. Ginger's a super heavy industrial metal band out of Ukraine. Been a big fan of theirs for years. I like all kind of noise. I'm not a music genre purist or anything. I'm just as happy at going to the symphony as I'm seeing or going to the Japanese restaurant and theater to see a jazz show or seeing the heavy metal or hard rock show. I just have my preferences. Three favorite bands ever is Rush, Van Halen, and Led Zeppelin probably. Um, but like a lot of my favorites kind of center in hard rock and metal. So she's playing a song. Okay, good. I mean, she's talented. She's wonderful. She's done a lot of successful albums. That's great. I just not what I want to listen to tonight. So yeah, I listened to Kimmel. I listened to the monologue. It was real strong. Have to give him credit. It was super strong. Hit all the points that I would have hit for the First Amendment and what it means to be American and the fact that believe it or not, a lot of the hardcore Republicans and even the far righters aren't happy with what Carr said about threatening in a mafioso style a broadcast. And it has nothing to do with Kimmel. It's just FCC Chairman Carr should have never opened up his fucking pie hole about taking somebody off the air via even a latent threat. Okay, that's not the role of the FCC. And I've never liked this since the 80s, since they wanted to start censoring music videos, censoring cable TV, not just broadcast TV. Um, you know, oh my God, you can't transmit something because you have to protect the children. Okay, it's not up to the broadcasters to be the parents. That's us, the parents. I got three kids. Okay. Yeah, there was a reason why they never had computers in their rooms when they were small. Okay, the computer was right here in the family room. Why? Because my wife and I aren't stupid. Okay, um, my kids knew that if they ever got caught watching something on direct TV or the internet they weren't supposed to, they would lose those privileges for a long time. Okay, I don't need the FCC to censor television for everybody because you have a false argument about protecting the children. I think my wife and I, and like my wife's parents who are super close to us, the grandparents, we did a great job raising our kids. I don't need the FCC's fucking help. So, yeah, Brendan Carr and Kimmel said this. Really should have shut up. He shouldn't have said it. And it's not a partisan thing. It's not a certain group of people saying it. Everybody across the board. I mean, libertarians at Reason Magazine are livid, and they should be. Liberals are pissed off as hell. They should be. I'm furious that somebody would be this draconian enough to say in America I want this taken off the air, and if you don't, I'm going to ruin your business. Okay, Ted Cruz is right, and I'm glad he actually put Ted Cruz's words up on the monologue, because yeah, this was like, hey, I'm sorry, you got a nice deli here. I hate to see it burn down. There's no difference from what Carr did to what Ted Cruz gave as an example. It was a threat. It was a threat against an American business for the words that came out of her mouth. And you got to remember the history of this. Remember, Lenny Bruce was arrested by the police multiple times. It was either the second or the third time George Carlin jumped in and started tussling with the cops so he could get arrested too and ride in the squad car down to the jail. But yeah, Lenny Bruce got arrested for saying bad words. Jerry Falwell, the televangelist, the TV preacher back in the 80s, tried to literally make comedy illegal in this country by suing people out of business because they made a joke, an absurd joke that any reasonable person should have known was absurdity. Okay. Yeah, like the court today would never find in favor of Larry Flint and Hustler magazine. Now, you can think, as I do, that Larry Flint is a total fucking degenerate and a total fucking weirdo. That doesn't mean he loses his First Amendment rights to make a joke or draw a political or satirical cartoon. Okay, the society looked at the lawsuit back then in the 80s with Falwell as a direct threat to the First Amendment. Like he was literally trying to ban words, drawings, anything that the far religious right didn't like. Okay. They called themselves the moral majority. I called them the immoral minority because there were a tiny minority of people who were just loudmouths with a TV broadcast. That was all the TV preachers were. Not many people like literally hardcore followed them and their rising politics. And the TV preachers were really the beginning of sort of the popularization of politicized American Christianity. You know, politicized American Christianity, which means you believe in the politics of the preachers and you forget who the hell Jesus Christ was. You forget about Matthew 5 and the Sermon on the Mount. Anything that is actually good and peaceful as a message of literature and allegory. You know, the Bible's not real. Religion is not real. There's no gods. There's no Easter Bunny. There's no Santa Claus. Okay. There are no ghosts. Okay. But you can still look at that literature and go, okay, that's a message to, be a good person. Okay. They just drop all that and adhere to the politics of the loudest mouth in the room whose major goal is to put money in his pocket. Because that's what the televangelists did back in the 80s, and that's what they do. That's what they do today. It's all about putting money in their pocket. One of the funniest reactions I've seen to televangelists of today was comedian Ron White's reaction to Joel Osteen. Boy, does Ron White hate Joel Osteen. I think much more than I do. Because anybody preaching the prosperity gospel is a con artist. Okay. I may be an atheist, but I've actually read the Bible. Okay. And parts of the Torah and parts of the Quran. It's literature. I like reading. Okay. Nowhere in there does it say defraud your flock. Enrich yourself and buy yourself a limousine, a vacation home, and a private jet, or 6 private jets, like Copeland, that one preacher, Copeland, has a whole hangar full, or Creflo Dollar, the black guy, the black preacher. Oh my God. If you don't give me 4 million or whatever it was, 400,000, 4 million, whatever the fuck he wanted to finish off the fundraising for his plane, God is going to kill me. I would go, see you later, asshole. Goodbye. So, yeah, I think Kimmel was really strong tonight. Still, the show doesn't do anything for me. I watched it on principle. Yeah, I was a friend of Carson, and when Joan Rivers, subbed for him when he was out, and I really like Letterman. I think he's the best of the early moderns, and Conan at times was really good. For Craig Ferguson, I think is just a little crazy and a lot Scottish, so he's just like fun to watch as a person. So him being a total goofball, especially with his very pretty guests, was funny. But yeah, I haven't. It's like Saturday Night Live. I haven't watched Saturday Night Live in 20 fucking years. I haven't. I don't watch much late night TV other than maybe watching randomly like Colbert, or watching the DVR later, like watching Daily Show later at night, or watching on YouTube or something. So the school form, the show format, it's just passe, I guess, for me. I mean, if you like it, watch it. I mean, I don't care. But the uh, the messaging was real solid. Everything, as far as like pro free speech, pro American, what's American versus anti-American. I think he covered all that very, very well. Where I get a little perplexed, and this is just putting my old, where's my military police? Yeah, my old cop hat back on is of many years ago. I was a cop a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But let's say this is the mid to late '80s. It's 11:30 at night, and I'm driving down the main boulevard, and there's a guy lying on the sidewalk, young black kid in banger attire, and he bleeding from the stomach. Okay. I find it ridiculous. Like I heard Tim Dillon say this. I hear this pretty strongly said by Bill. Well, we can't know, or inferring a little bit further. How can we possibly know the identity of the shooter in the Kirk case? I'm like, okay, let me draw a parallel for you for a little bit here. I roll up, kid shot in the sidewalk, black gangster. Okay, 17, 18 years old, got a pretty bad bullet wound in the stomach. Start rolling fire and ambulance for rescue. He's putting pressure on the wound, so don't worry about it. He's kind of self-care. Roll him over real quick. It's not a through and through, so he's bleeding internally. He's not bleeding out through the gravity out the lower back. So okay, so who did this? Give the situation. It's our county, which we know very well. We know the populace. We know the criminal element versus normies around. It's the '80s. We know the gang warfare is a thing. It happens virtually every freaking day. Someone's getting capped, or there's a drive-by going on, or whatever. So you're looking at this kid on the ground. So when the watch commander shows up and asks me what the heck is going on, I would sound pretty ridiculous going, well, I don't have any idea in the universe who could have possibly shot this kid, because he's writhing in pain. He's not giving me any information. Once people smack around, I'm getting canvas officers to check the restaurant down the street that has windows toward the street. Did anybody see anything? Did anybody see anybody suddenly running away? Did anybody hear the gunshot? Or there may be multiple gunshots. We're still looking for casings and bullet holes or bullet ricochets on the ground, whatever. I'd sound pretty ridiculous to my sergeant or my lieutenant when they showed up, and I go, oh, I just don't have any idea. It could have been an Amish guy from Maine, who suddenly converted to Scientology and moved out to California and took up the banger lifestyle. So I think it's a blonde haired guy with an Amish beard who's 6 foot tall, broad shoulders, wearing overalls. Okay, they probably taken my badge and gun away and drove me to the hospital because they thought I was either on drugs or I had lost my shit and went 5150. No, I'm looking for another young black male about the same age, maybe one of the pro hitters that are closer to 30 in the black gangs, or I'm looking for an Hispanic banger because those two ran into each other on the street. They had a prior beef and they just, went off. Okay, so at least I have two working theories. Okay. I can probably rule out retired nurses, bookkeepers, and school teachers who live in my town or live in the adjacent towns, um, who are 65 years old, overweight, and probably are in bed by 9 o'clock. I could probably safely rule those people out. But I just get this thing where, and I will buttress this. I was trying to make a point in my last video, so I was being kind of animated. But yeah, I know that Marr or Kimmel may be being told by their management and their attorneys, hey, don't go too far because yeah, this is a litigious, craziest society, and the Trumpers are just suing anybody for any reason. And you see like the Trump lawsuits. I just got on the phone with my old cop friend who's now at a JD and certified in state and federal courts. And I said, hey, did you see that last lawsuit about $15 billion against the reporters and the Times and everything? And he's like, yeah, it didn't get kicked out because it was like a total mess. I'm going, yeah, I'm sitting here reading the court the court judge's decision. He's livid. I mean, he's like, and I go, dude, you have to explain to me why the judge is so mad. He goes, dude, this is federal court. You got a claim and it's the first round. You better show up with a clean 4 or 5 pages. What the claim is, what do you want? Most of the time it's money, but it may be enjoyment or blocking somebody from doing it again. Um, and then how do you want to proceed based on the evidence you have? And it's clear cut, concise, short. You don't waste the judge's time on an initial filing. Um, Trump's lawyer filed an almost like a 90-page filing that's just full of babble, conflicting speech, self-argument, where they're projecting their own argument and going, "Oh my God, can you see how bad that is?" I'm like, and the whole thing is like, I'm not even a lawyer. I'm just a cop. I mean, I deal with legal issues, sure, and I've testified a bunch of court, both here in the United States and in Germany, um, West Germany back then, but yeah, you just don't do rambling filings. That's a no in any court. And this was pretty bad because it was also filled with a lot of grievance, projection, political arguments that weren't legal arguments. The thing made no sense, and the judge completely threw it out because it was like, you violated Rule 8, which says you can't basically file an encyclopedia of bullshit. You can't waste the court's time. That's what basically Rule 8 means, according to my lawyer friend. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you can't be doing that. Not in federal court." And state judges don't like it either, but you especially can't be doing that in federal court. The judge will be upset with you. And so I can totally see, like, if they tell Kimmel or Marr, like, hey, how do we know this? You got to edge against, we don't know because we haven't read the case thing. But when you're talking about profiles, and that's what I was, being animated about the other day, is about talking about profiles. And I'm like, well, how the fuck do you think in Orem, Utah, this is suddenly the center of, the basket weaving class at Berkeley, full with, transgender, blue haired, purple dress wearers, all suddenly moved from Berkeley and Amherst, Massachusetts to Orem, Utah? Because when I wrote about an essay about this, I gave you 3 different points, and I said one of the total possibilities of the profile is this a far leftist with an ideology that he can change the world, the Franz Ferdinand assassination, cuckoo for Cocoa Puff stuff. Oh, one bullet will change the whole course of the world. That was one of the theories I presented. I was just reacting in my last video how ridiculous I thought that all these people online were like, how possibly could it be anything but not MAGA? And I'm like, well, there's a possibility it's not MAGA because you've always got the lone wolf wild card scenario you got to account for. I mean, and it happens once in a while. It's rare, but it's not that rare. I mean, you have to account for it, sure. But again, using my gang member lying on the sidewalk scenario, okay? Am I going to be looking for an Episcopalian Hispanic priest as my suspect? Probably not. Probably not. Okay, I can rule out retired school teachers, old enough to be in bed by 9 o'clock. That sort of stuff. You know, I know who shoots other people in our county. Okay, there's a whole library of cases that tell you who battles who on the streets in our county. You don't need a PhD in criminology to figure out who's shooting who, especially back in the gang days. They were pretty out there in their communications. Like, this is one of the dumbest things about gangs and about cults. They think they're being secretive, but they aren't. Not at all. I mean, like, when they started tagging in our town, spray painting their gang things there. That's the communication system. Everything from status to memorials to threats um, to marking territory. Okay, so they thought they were all being sly and being in code and stuff, and you start examining the tags, and quickly you can read them like you're reading another language. It's not exactly decoding the Rosetta Stones. Okay, so as soon as they started banging or another faction started having a beef, it usually ended up on the tags, and then we go, here we go again. Someone's going to get dropped. Why? It's written right there. We take a Polaroid of it. Yeah, we had Polaroids. That's how old I am. But we had crime scene Polaroids. These were cool. Polaroid Corporation donated all this stuff to us. They donated to all across the country and in Canada too. Like we had 1-to-1 stands, so the lens was proper distance. So when you took evidence photos, it actually showed a 1-to-1 relationship. So the size on the photo was actually the size of the thing you're taking the photo of, which I thought was really handy. And they instantly developed, which was really cool because you could share the information, share with other officers, investigators, witnesses, whatever. I always like that. So yeah, but yeah, Polaroid. No iPhones back then. So I do find it kind of strange that he had to interject that pretty strong, and he may have honestly not looked into it, and I don't know who actually did it. I'm just saying that I was just making jokes, and you guys all inferred that I said that the shooter was MAGA, and I don't think Kimmel did. I read the transcript from why he got suspended, which I was betting he was going to get just fired. I thought they were going to totally capitulate here, but then they crashed the unsubscriptions page at Disney. So I knew that I knew that the boycott was big enough this time to actually matter, because my son kept sending me updates of the ticker from Disney, and he kept circling the market cap going lower and lower for the last couple of days. He's texting me in his lunch break. He's going, "Dad, you see this?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I saw that." They're losing money fast, and they lost a couple of billion. I mean, a couple of billion out of what are they? 210 billion. Not a major crisis. It's a bad quarter for Disney. They're not going to go out of business, or Bob Iger isn't going to get fired. None of that. Okay, but yeah, I don't know why they have to say, "Oh my God, I can't possibly know who did this." Trust me, the Utah cops are going, probably somebody who didn't like the victim. Okay, now who doesn't like the victim? Well, it boils down to a pretty fucking short list. If you're gonna, and again, I'm talking profile theory. Okay, like I said the other day, it's going to be a far leftist with a Ferdinand complex. It's going to be a John Hinckley style attention getter. John Hinckley shot Reagan to get Jodie Foster's attention. Who could have seen that coming? This is what I keep saying. You can't stop crazy with a police tank. Okay, and if it was just a crazy, the cops aren't going to stop it. This shit's going to happen. The answer to this type of crime is more mental health care. Interceding with these people before they get violent. And since our healthcare system sucks so bad, remember, I used to live in Europe, so I've seen what a real healthcare system looks like. And plus, my wife's cousin is a surgeon in Germany now, an active, working doctor. So we get firsthand stories about how he has to handle his job, and he's like, "No, we don't worry about any of the stuff you guys do. Doctors don't worry. Doctors in Germany do not worry like doctors in America about how they're going to get this thing approved." Like that breast surgery doctor, I keep watching on YouTube, that nice lady. She's like so like bombastically qualified to do what she does as a surgeon. And I really respect that. I just went through surgery, and I had a doctor. She's the chief robotic surgeon of this type of surgery. I was so glad to have her, because she's like the top CV getter, education, fellowships, experience. I read her whole background, and I'm like, oh, I'm really glad I have you as a doctor. and I'm starting to feel better. So I'm really glad I had her as a surgeon, So this surgeon on YouTube, she's like, oh my God, I got to call the insurance company. And they're literally making her de-scrub and come out of surgery with a patient under anesthesia. And they're questioning her about why she's doing the surgery she's in progress doing. Okay. Like doctors don't do that in Germany. Yeah. If somebody did that in France or like Belgium, they'd probably go to prison. Like France has some super strict laws about how you cannot use cost as a means of not giving somebody health care. Okay. And we're all about that in America, which is morally wrong because we're not paying for healthcare. I don't want to go into a whole healthcare thing tonight, but just real quick, we're not paying for healthcare. We're paying for middlemen. Okay. That's what's different about Europe and Australia and New Zealand and the technocracies of the Pacific. They don't pay middlemen. They have plenty of money for healthcare. Okay. So, I'm really glad that Kimmel is back on the air, even though that's probably the last show I'm going to watch in a long time of Kimmel. And I watch it on purpose. I want my TV, my subscription to show +1 in the ratings. Okay. Why? Because it's a good fuck you to Dear Leader Porn Star Helper. He's an idiot. It's a good fuck you to Brendan Carr. He's an idiot. Okay. Americans should know better. We went through McCarthyism where everybody was accused of anything. And it was just the accusation was thrown out there. People lost their jobs. People lost their livelihoods. People lost their careers over empty accusations. You shouldn't be doing this shit. Lenny Bruce got arrested for words. We shouldn't be doing this shit. Not if we actually believe in the Constitution. Okay. Sure, we had some exigent circumstances, but every time where we thought it was even close to needing a search warrant to make sure we weren't violating the Fourth Amendment, we went out and we woke up a DA, even if it's the middle of the frickin' night, 2, 3 a.m. We didn't care. If we needed a search warrant, we needed a search warrant. We're not going to violate the city rights. We're not going to do this wrong unless we have a total emergency exigent circumstance. And we had a couple of those where we didn't bother to get warrants because if we waited, something else bad would have happened. Okay. In one case, children were at risk. So no, I'm not waiting for a warrant. Both the state local judge, the district judge, and the state appellate court approved our search. So yeah, it was legal. But I always sided, my department always sided, my colleagues always sided on getting the search warrant. You never tried to serve an arrest warrant inside a home unless you also have a search warrant. Now, if I catch you walking down the sidewalk in public and I know you have an arrest warrant, I'm going to put the habeas corpus on you, but I'm not going to barge into your home and do it unless I have a search warrant. Okay. I'm not going to interrogate somebody after they invoke their Fifth Amendment under the Miranda rights. I read Miranda rights to every single person I'm about to question as a suspect in a criminal investigation. That's done without exception. Okay. Now, I think Hollywood fucks up Miranda rights because everybody thinks as soon as the handcuffs go on, you got to read the Miranda rights like Adam 12. No. That's not how it works in the real world. Okay. You have to give them the Miranda rights before you start criminally questioning them. And for the purposes of interview and interrogation, because they're the suspect. Now, if you're just gathering information at the crime scene and you don't even realize they're the suspect and they start saying shit, you don't have to read the Miranda rights. You can just sit there and just let them talk. They just openly started volunteering this information while you were in the process of figuring out what the hell was going on. Just let them talk. Okay. So now one of the things I want to say personally that I didn't hear tonight was, yes, the First Amendment is important, yet all of the amendments are important. That's why I'm bringing up the Fourth as an example, as another amendment. All amendments are valid. Okay. We need all of them as a set or the whole system collapses. Okay. You can't take away the First Amendment and expect the Second, the Third, the Fourth, the Fifth, etc., to be there. No, that's not how the Madison framework works. Um, Getting rid of any amendment would be a complete disaster unless we went through a constitutional convention. Because that's the only way we can legally change the Constitution. Which, quick side note, I think we should have done. Jefferson got that right. Jefferson said meet every 20 years, do a constitutional convention. I think the last time we did it was like 1798. It was a good convention, but we haven't done it since, and that's part of the problem because modernity has not been factored into our Constitution. That's part of the big problem, and it allows a lot of the regressive, far right decisions that you're seeing now. So, um, now it would be interesting because he brought this up. Like Trump also threatened uh, Seth Meyers and somebody else. Okay, what I must have missed that because I didn't see him threat the other people too. But it's on par for what Dearlier does. I mean, he's an ugly, mean narcissist. So nothing, nothing surprises me. Um, do you really think they're going to take Seth Meyer off the air now? Okay. I already saw one. I haven't verified it for myself, but I saw a couple of tweets, or not tweets. I'm not on X or Twitter, or I'm on Blue Sky. On Blue Sky, I saw a couple of posts. They were like, "Hey, did you see how fast the monologue for Kimmel went to 1 million? I guess it went to 1 million in like 5 or 10 minutes. So I'm wondering what it's going to be in 24 hours. I hope the numbers are huge. I hope just for the principle thing, people at least tune into the monologue, even if it's not for Kimmel. It's got to be for free speech. Okay, because I'll say this again. I was no fan of Charles Kirk. I am no fan of the TV preachers. I never once, or Alex Jones or Rush Limbaugh or some more of the idiot podcasters. I do have some of the problems with the podcasters that are taking dark money from adversarial countries, and they're also far right. But in general, if you have a voice, you have an opinion, you have a right to say it. It can be completely stupid. It can be completely wrong. It even can be mean, and you can be an asshole about it. Okay. Free speech means protecting the speech you don't like. And that's where Carr and Trump went afoul. They didn't like the speech, so they immediately spoke up how they were going to threaten people to stop that speech. That's what made it un-American. Okay. And I have friends and family from a lot of despot countries, East Germany, Venezuela, Cuba. Yeah. Say the wrong things in those countries, you go to prison or worse. Yeah. That's what something Kimmel said tonight. That was spot on. Some of my wife's family got stuck behind the Berlin Wall. Okay. They told us what it was like. Freedom of speech is not something they have. Not at all. So if you enjoy the speech or the art or the music, because censorship keeps coming back round and round and round. Okay. The Parents Music Resource Council, led by Tipper Gore in the Hens Club in the Senate. Okay. The Senate wise decided that they had a little side project going on and they were going to ban hard rock and metal that they didn't like. Now, did they ever once listen to the albums? No. Okay. They had some aide, some assistant go write down some lyrics. They read the lyrics and clutched their pearls and goes, "Oh, we have to protect the children." Remember, Tipper Gore is married to Al Gore, the Democrat. Keep bringing up the left-right orthodoxy. Some of y'all don't pay attention to it. That's a mistake. Tipper Gore led the charge to ban artist after artist after artist. They even published the top 20 albums they wanted taken off the shelves. Prince, Van Halen. They wanted the Hot for Teacher music video banned. One of the best music videos of all time, which, by the way, is all tongue in cheek. And one of the things that got wrong, the girl in the bikini isn't a girl. She's 31 years old in that video. They try to make up that, oh, they hired this teenage girl. And even the model who interviewed years later, she goes, I thought I was never going to get the job. I thought I was too old. But David Lee Roth happened to run into her while they were getting the scene together. And David Lee Roth just thought she was beautiful. And she goes, are you in the video? And he's like, oh, that's going to be so cool. And the producer was like, I guess you're in. Yeah, that was a 31-year-old woman and a model who did the video knowing it was this whole tongue-in-cheek thing about the song they wrote. Okay. Yeah, they wanted the literal song taken off the air. Fuck you. You commie whack jobs. Okay. So I never liked it. I never liked the stories of comedians getting arrested. Comedians, like, do you guys know where the term blue comedy comes from? Okay. When you said bad words back in the 50s and even into the 60s and 70s, the club owners would come up and hand you a note in a blue envelope. That was your little warning notice. Those were the words you couldn't use in the club. So from what I understand, it was sort of an industry process, and that's where exactly blue comedy comes from. Okay. There were some club owners that didn't give a shit what you said, as long as people laughed and drank. That's all they care about. But yeah, some comedy clubs had blue rules, very similar to blue laws, the laws that prevented us from shopping in New England when I was growing up on Sundays because Jesus doesn't shop on Sundays. Okay, I can go to church at 10, like I'm supposed to, like my parents told me to way back then. And then I can also go to the mall. I can do two things at the same day. No. We all had to be home with our families. It was like this state social engineering of what you could and could not do on Sundays. Um, Pretty absurd by today's standard, but that was practiced when I was a kid in New England. Yeah. All liquor sales stopped at 11 o'clock on Saturday. You have to give Jesus an extra hour, I guess, or Jesus will cry. I'm like, okay. Um, Now, what's the only good news is of this is there's a lot of cons- truth conservatives. There's a few left who are just livid about, for honest constitutional reasons. They're actual constitutional conservatives. They're just freaking livid that the fucking government would take a TV show off for some banal comment. And the reason they're pissed is because it was a stab at Trump. I mean, how thin-skinned. I mean, I read the Smothers Brothers letter from LBJ, on my last live video. Take that letter compared to what's happening today. Thin-skinned, we're talking thinner than we've ever imagined. I mean, this is despot level. You can't talk about the king of Thailand or you can't talk about Kim Jong-un. This is a ridiculous throwback. So true constitutional conservatives, Bill Kristol, for example, just absolutely fit to be tied over this. But funny, the right, Ted Cruz, and some of the far right are genuinely upset about Kimmel being taken off the air. They're calling Kimmel a little pussy and an asshole and every other pejorative, but they're like, how the hell does the government tell you who can be on TV? And I'm going, oh, you're waking up. You're getting it. Okay. Because Trump and Project 2012 and the Heritage Foundation and the Clown Show have all told you they want to control society and culture. They've made that absolutely 1,000% clear. Okay? They want totalitarian control under a philosophy of Christian nationalism. Okay? And remember, Trump isn't a Christian nationalist. He's a narcissistic authoritarian populist out for himself and himself only. That's why the Christian nationalists seized on to Dear Leader, because they know he is such a narcissist. All they have to do is kiss his ass and tell him he's the greatest thing American ever got. And Reagan was a coward and Nixon was a commie, and he'll do anything they want. And it happened. And it happened. The accelerationists and the corporate socialists, The corporate socialists, most tech CEOs, most business CEOs today. Tim Cook shows up with $100,000 bribe in the White House. We'll call it a gift. The rest of us are going, why isn't that a bribe? But here's the bribe. Now this shit doesn't apply to you. Now you get favoritism. Okay. This is the spectrum. I don't think the group on the right that doesn't care is the corporate socialist. Okay. The corporatism crowd. They literally do not give a shit. Any manipulation of any political structure, they don't care about it. They don't get away with this in a lot of other countries, or they don't get away with much of this in the EU, but they get away with everything here because of the lobbying in Congress and now the direct. I mean, you can send money directly to the president of the United States through a meme coin right now. And they say, hey, did you see that $100,000 deposit? Thank you. You're welcome, sir. Well, what do you need? It's like the fucking wedding scene in Goodfather, where everybody's bringing the honorage to the Godfather. I mean, like, okay, Jesus. I mean, and then you add Tom Holland on video in an FBI sting video, taking $50,000 in cash in a bag. So yeah, the all this is going on, but all of a sudden you've got what's left of actual conservative constitutionalists, some of the nationalists, and some of the hard right Republicans who just, I don't know where they're at. Like, I have no fucking idea where Rand Paul is, other than losing his shit half the time. Um, all these voices on the right and the far right are grousing just as hard to their audience on the right. Remember that part. Okay. They're going on OAN and getting in arguments with the host saying, no, you're wrong. This Kimmel's firing was an unconstitutional, un-American move. Okay. Beep, 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 beep. The audience heard that. The right-wing audience heard that. So that's one of the good effects of a, silver lining analogy. The fact that you're getting so much airtime and so much communication to a centrist value, because everybody should believe in free speech, free press, freedom of art. Like, I remember when they banned Robert Mapplethorpe. No, they didn't ban him. They fucking arrested the art director. I think it was back in Ohio. I think it was. Yeah, Ohio Mapplethorpe. They grabbed the gallery director because out of this huge exposition, they don't like 4 or 5 of his paintings, which they think are, perverted or obscene or whatever. I'm like, no, the police should have never walked into an art gallery and arrested people over art. They literally put the habeas corpus on this guy, if I remember correctly. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you're censoring an artist and you haven't made a case on why it's been censored. 2, you're making a physical arrest on an obscenity charge, which is actually a really old law. It's, well, no, not colonial, but like early 1800s, if I remember correctly. And the obscenity when that law was written versus obscenity now, especially after the porn decision and this was post porn decision. What's porn? I don't know. You have to look at it. I mean, to ban porn means nothing. That's basically what the Supreme Court said. So you're making this obscenity, ergo pornography arrest. Instead of, if you thought that was something harmful to the community, why didn't you just collect evidence and forward it to the district attorney for an arrest warrant later? I mean, they wanted to put the performative arrest into the news as sort of this, cop Christian crusader. But even in some of the, more teetotaler, more embarrassed about risque or avant-garde art, they were like, Do we really want cops going into art galleries arresting art gallery directors? No, that's probably something we don't want. Okay, so like I said, this shit keeps rolling through time and time and time again. I've just tonight I've talked about things that happened in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and today. Okay. That's why Kimmel coming back on the air tonight was important. Yeah, and I wish him well on the show, whatever. I watch whatever you want. I don't watch much TV anymore. I can't stand reality TV. We had reality TV when I was growing up. It was called Nova and Frontline. And, the cool shows for kids like Zoom and Electric Company and Sesame Street. Okay. I mean, and like Saturday morning, we got the long Bugs, but we got 3 hours of Bugs Bunny and all that. That was the old cool stuff before our times, last generation's cartoons, which were cool. I don't even like most of the cartoons, including most of the adult cartoons I don't like. I'm a huge fan of cartoons, especially adult cartoons. Like a lot of people don't know, the Flintstones, that was not a kid's show. That was a Friday 8 p.m. show. We weren't allowed to watch it till we got older. So, yeah, adult animation has been around for a long time, way before Simpsons and South Park. I mean, uh, probably Fritz the Cat. I'm not a movie or a cartoon historian, but I'm thinking like Fritz the Cat in the early 70s was the first cartoon risque movie that got an X rating. Probably the first adult cartoon I remember, and I remember watching, and I remember going back, um, like during the pandemic and watching some of the shows because I was bored out of my Falcon Skull. Like I went back and watched a lot of the early Johnny Quest, which I grew up on, which was fantastic. I love that show. Um, the new one sucks. I watched the new one on one of the services, and I turned it off. It was so bad. Uh, so yeah, we should all be happy tonight. He's back on the air. Really happy. Disney got kind of slapped upside the head. They lost some money. Because Bob Iger had a choice. He could have looked right at Brendan Carr and said, "Why don't you try to fucking make me? What are you going to do? Shut down the entire network? I dare you. I dare you." Because I don't even think with this Supreme Court, they would have backed Carr all the way up, taking a broadcast license away from ABC. I think in the end, it was 90% an empty threat. There was so little chance that was reality. Now, could they have disrupted their business? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I could totally see DHS showing up at Disney headquarters now. If they're willing to run into a church or run into a school and arrest a kid in the middle of algebra class, I would put nothing past them showing up at ABC's offices or Disney's office with a flimsy search warrant. Okay, so there's real risk there. I'm not saying there wasn't real risk for Iger. There was, but he also could have, grown a bigger set and said, "Hey, Carr, now leave Trump out of it. Just say Carr. Oh, you want to threaten my business? Like you're going to burn down my deli? Like this is Goodfellas? Okay, I dare you, motherfucker. Do it. Do it." And I think the Republicans would have backed up Iger. The Republicans in Congress, most of them, not the crazy House Republican jerk offs. They can't get they can't get their own head out of their own ass. But the more sensible senators, I just like you saw now, just like you saw before Kimmel was reinstated. Um, yeah, I can totally see the Republicans backing up Iger saying, "Hey, go fuck yourself." You know, there's only one case in American history where I have agreed with censorship. 81ish, University of Washington figures out how to make an Edward Teller weapon, a thermonuclear two-stage big boomy, a true thermonuclear bomb. They figured it out from first principles on their own. Now, one, kudos. Holy shit, kudos for figuring out the engineering. But no, you can't publish that paper. and the NSA sued in court, and the NSA won all the way up to the Supreme Court, I think it was. Yeah. Um, Absolutely no. You're not publishing a instruction manual for terrorist organizations how to build a teller weapon. No. Now the amazing thing um, about Teller, the scientist, was before they even built the first atomic bombs, like the ones we dropped on Japan, he had already figured out how to make a thermonuclear bomb, magnitudes more powerful. He figured that out way before they got figured out they were going to make the Trinity test bomb. Yeah, he figured that out early, which is wow, brilliant, brilliant. And a lot of people there, I think they showed that in the Oppenheimer movie. That when you sit in a meeting, well, if we do this and we do this, what we'll use lithium, and all everybody else laughs at him. And he's like, "No, I'm serious." And no, yeah, he is. Yeah, the Tsar Bomba is a lithium trigger system. Yeah, I'm not a nuclear physicist, but yeah, that the biggest thing that ever has been detonated had a lithium stage in it. It's not all uranium; it just has to be radioactive. It just has to do the neutron thing, and then the neutron thing, if it gets expanded suddenly, you get a bigger boomy. Um, so that's the only censorship I've ever agreed with in my entire life, and it is government censorship nonetheless. They blocked people from communicating their writing. Okay. But this was the one outlier case where I'm going like, nope, nope. You are not showing the Red Army faction, Action Direct, and Hezbollah how to make a teller weapon. No, no. And every crazy in the United States with a chemistry or a physics hobby. No. So, yeah, one case out of billions of cases in the 300 million people. How many billions of tens of billions of words do we use a day? Okay. Unless they're a threat, libel, or slander, whatever's written, the verbal one, not written one, or you're being fraudulent. You have free speech, and in the fraud, in the libel, um, uh, in the threat are all pretty clear. I mean, those are well established in law. You know, like the two drunks arguing, and one drunk will go in the bar. Well, if you were causing more of a people, somebody would have whipped your ass. Saying like, "Hey, I didn't really, get in the fight." Well, you now have to arrest him for threatening me, and I'm like looking at the other drunk, going, "Shut up! That's not a threat. He's just being a colloquial little asshole because you're both drunk out of your fucking minds, and if one of you don't get in the cab, and the other one don't walk away, someone's gonna go to jail." And both of you shut up. It's 2 a.m. It's been a busy night. I don't have patience for you two drunk idiots. Shut up and leave the bar. But yeah, other than that, your free speech is, in my book, undeniable. Like, I just posted the Dan McCullen video, just disemboweling Kirk's complete misunderstanding of the Bible. Okay. Now, if Kirk wants to stand on a campus and yell at college kids and use a lot of ambush logic, which is a fraudulent interaction technique, um, to berate people he doesn't like or ideologies he doesn't like, which is anything but Christian nationalism. And Kirk was a Christian nationalist. His out in that video was, well, I've always considered myself a Christian and a nationalist, not a Christian nationalist. And that's just bullshit cover speak. You are a Christian nationalist. You've always been a Christian nationalist. That's who you are by your own definition, ignoring your stupid little wordplay. But yeah, if he wants to stand on a college campus and be wrong, okay, as long as it's not a threat, libel, or a fraud, it's covered by the First Amendment. When I had to police those damn anti-abortion protests when I was in uniform, 4,000 people show up on the main boulevard along the beach. Holy fuck. Oh my God. And they're just holding signs up that are just medically untrue. Okay, I'm a father by then. I'm like, okay, I went to all my wife's GBI, and I've asked my family, my wife's doctor for helping with our family. I've asked him about these signs. And they're like, no, that's not true. Oh, no, that's not true. Okay. I can't arrest them because I don't like their signs, nor would I ever consider to arrest them. The only reason I would arrest somebody in a protest like that if they started getting violent or they started threatening people. Okay, if you're getting violent, you're going in handcuffs. You're gone. Yeah, zero tolerance in our town. If you want to protest, you can protest your brains out. I don't care. Neither did the city manager. Okay, it's your right. Fine. You want to get violent, you will be arrested and charged without exception. There will be no fistfights. There will be no swinging signs at each other's heads. So yeah, so I've seen it all. Okay, if you start shit, we will take immediate action. That's why at the Planned Parenthood, our patrol captain got involved personally. He showed up on a Saturday in full uniform with a gun and a badge and a baton and the whole patrol look. And I was like, okay, whatever's happening today, it's big. He's not wearing a suit today. He's in full uniform, ready for patrol. And he's like, yeah, I got both court orders from both the local judge and the state judge. I completely reviewed these with the city attorney and outside counsel. We know exactly what to do, and I'm going to brief you exactly what we're going to do. And he had iterated in that briefing. And when we go up to this protest, there will be two competing sides, and they will both be yelling and screaming. That is free speech. Okay. As soon as somebody starts threatening or somebody violates any notion of the 10 restrictions that were approved by the state judge, they will be immediately arrested without exception. Okay. We're never going to arrest you for your free speech. We will arrest you for violating a court order. Okay. And both leaders were given Xerox copies by the captain when we arrived. Hey, you, you need to understand that these are the two sitting court orders that we are abiding by, that both our city attorney and our supervisor, the city manager, has told us to obey. Okay. If any of these court orders are violated by either of your groups, by any measure, you will be arrested immediately and charged and taken to county jail. We're not even going to book you in city jail. We're taking you directly to county. We're taking you out of our town. They were like, oh, okay, you guys are serious. Yeah, no shit. Oh, and by the way, there's 45 extra cops down at the basketball courts at the high school in case you guys want to start a fight. Don't start a fight. Okay? Scream at each other, chant away, provide your disinformation as you please. That's all free speech. Okay? Start a disturbance, threat, or a fight, or violate, and by disturbance, I mean violate that court order. Okay? You are going to jail. And you will be charged with violating a state court order, which can be a felony. Good luck, folks. Okay? So, yeah, really glad Kimmel's back on. Glad I watched it. Good luck to Jimmy and his family. Good luck to everybody involved with the show. I wish no will ill. I think you guys got screwed. I hope nobody else is threatened by this, and I hope this kind of reverberation from tonight slaps back at the firings from the newspaper. I saw Karen on this platform, Ataha. I may be screwing up her last name horribly. Washington Post opinion editor for like 11 years. They just willy nilly fired her, and I'm like, okay, I already dropped my Washington Post and New York Times subscriptions because of this type behavior, and now they're going after basically everybody that worked there. So I hope people start reviewing what's happened recently, especially in this first year of the second term of hell with Dear Leader, to remember all the other free speech problems that are going on, not just with Trump, but also threats from people like DeSantis, who loves to make threats. Well, if you say this, I'm going to ruin your life. Paraphrasing, of course, but he's gone to some very anti-free speech. And I've had to remind myself of this. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm saying this is self-reflection and advice for the audience. Avoid, or don't flat out say that you aren't allowed to say that. Again, unless it's a threat, a violation of a court order, libel. Yeah, they are allowed to say that. Now, what you should be saying is, that was stupid. That was wrong. Okay. And what I try to do, and you see this in a bunch of my posts, I said, hey, here's some time for some data. Okay. Um, yeah, I spent a lot of time looking up data. Um, at least I have when I'm using, a lot of times, I just use old school searches, but, I have been using more ChatGPT 5, Sound 9000. Um, I turned on long term memory and told her that always show me the sources and show me the source table. So I actually have the whole thing where I could rapid open up tabs and go, okay, this one was from the FBI, and this one was from this criminology study group, and this one was from the University of Michigan. Oh, okay, boom, 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 boom. Oh, okay, okay. Now I have a full read of those sources, and now I understand what I saw when I saw the summary in the return window. So yeah, I spend a lot of data. I download data. Um, if it's worth your time and a big enough issue, it's your big core issue. Understand, at least some of the data behind the issue. Like the other day, I was doing all sorts of drugs, like Tylenol. How hilarious is that? No, that's got me infuriated. The safest drug that doctors recommend for women to take at the early stages of fever intervention when they're pregnant. I know, again, father of three, went to all the OB/GYN appointments, talk to the doctors. What should we give her? She's getting a cold. Fever, this temperature, boom, give it to her. No questions asked. You got to keep the fever down. Okay. Up to and including cool baths and everything else, especially later in pregnancy. You got to keep that fever down. It's dangerous for her. It's dangerous for the baby. Okay, I remember that specifically. So they get on stage and claiming, "Oh, don't take it, don't take it, don't take it." He's kept repeating that, "Don't take it, don't take it." I'm like, "You lying freaking twats!" Like this, how many times are you in the Epstein files where you have to play this shit? Okay, we're dealing with an evil group of people. Okay, I was just in the hospital. What helped me a lot, because you do have to space out your painkillers, your opioids. And I was on Dilaudid, which is the strongest thing they'll give you other than phenol. And I had phenol in surgery. Okay. That's how much drugs were on board this past couple of weeks. So so almost dropped my phone. Um, I was on an acetaminophen drip, large doses per hour. Okay. I couldn't feel the arthritis in my lower back from wearing the gun belt all these years. I had terrible lower back problems from that damn gun belt and other things. Um, and getting a knee injury later in life didn't help. Um, that screws your balance up, and even so slightly, that affects your back a lot, especially when you have weight on your hips all the time, like I did. I had bruises on my hips for like 5 years after I retired. That thing was so heavy. So yeah, ton of arthritis in my back. Couldn't feel a thing with that acetaminophen drip going. I'm like, oh, at least that doesn't hurt. Now my abdomen hurt like hell because I just had major surgery. I have holes all over me, and they did major reconstruction work. So yeah, when you're waiting for that next dose of, Dilaudid and a 10 oxy just to kill that surgery pain, yeah, acetaminophen's your friend. Yeah. So these people are so Oz and RFK included. Oz, I confirmed this yesterday. Oz is invested in iHerb.com, which has some valid products, but I'm sure higher doses like vitamins and minerals, higher doses than you need. And research shows that multivitamins is just expensive urine. Don't ever use a multivitamin. Get a good healthcare plan, go to the hospital, have a blood test run. Sometimes you don't process certain vitamins well, and you do need to take supplements. Like have to take vitamin B12 for some reason because my last blood test. I've taken it for a few months. I take a little Chewies once or twice a day. Um, it happens. Some absorption problem happens, but there's no elixir that helps with nutrition absorption. That's hokum. That's hokum. iHerb's full of that. They have, and when you search for COVID, I did this on iHerb. This is where, no, Oz came up with the same. Well, it's an LLC that I'm cross invested in. I'm 2 degrees separated and whatever. His money was there at some point and somehow. So we know that. So you type into the search on iHerb, you put in COVID, they will sell you, and I'm not kidding, quote unquote, lung vitamins. They're shitting on the COVID vaccine. They turned that into shitting on all vaccines. Now they turned that into shitting on Tylenol, one of the safest drugs we have, which is safer than Motrin or aspirin. Just talk to my surgeon about this. She was insistent that if I had to take heavy doses of acetaminophen for home care, that I take acetaminophen, not aspirin or Motrin. Okay, that's what she put me on post-surgery as a drip to give me that constant underlying pain relief, and it worked. Thank you. Big bottles of acetaminophen. That's what I was on. Okay, this. Can you hurt yourself by taking too much acetaminophen? Yes, the dosage is the poison. Go watch Dr. Andrea Love um, here on Substack or on YouTube. Okay, she'll break down the whole doses of poison from a doctor who knows her shit. Okay, the dose is the poison. Yeah, if you swallow 3 bottles of Tylenol, that's not going to be good for you. Okay, if you use Tylenol on a regular basis when you have a fever or a cold, that is doctor recommended every time that I've talked to a doctor for my family. I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm saying, when I say, hey, when my kids are sick, what should we do? They say, do this. Acetaminophen. My wife is pregnant. What should I give her? She's getting a cold, maybe a fever. Acetaminophen. What should I have for post-op as the baseline painkiller? IV drip, acetaminophen. So how is acetaminophen? Oh, not to mention that autism was discovered before Tylenol was a product. Uh, and how did it cause autism? Do you see the level of hokum they're selling you? It's pure bullshit. Because next they're going to go after the birth control pills because there's too many things in it. They already went after the abortion pills for, I don't think, legitimate reasons medically or legally. Okay. Because I could take your stupid logic on the mifepristone pills, the morning after, prevents the attachment, the seeding process, I guess it's layman's terms, happening where you actually get an embedding where it can start to grow, prevents that. It's not actually an abortion. I know that part. You can make that same argument to take dick pills away. The Cialis and the Viagras and the Cidofels and all the other concoctions they sell it online and on late night TV. Just like if you want to take fluoride out of the water, I can use every one of your stupid fake chemistry arguments to take chlorine and chloramides out of the office, out of the office, out of the water, out of the water supply. Okay. I took a painkiller earlier. It's obviously kicking in. So if you're going to make up chemistry when it comes to fluoride, there's well waters in a bunch of parts of the country that have higher fluoride parts per million than the highest level allowed by law or regulation in the United States. And people don't get autism or brain damage or yada da 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 unless it's extreme dosages of fluoride over time. And there's places like India where there's so much fluoride in the water, they actually have to use alumina filters to get the fluoride out or it will hurt people. Okay? That's not the fluoride in public water. Okay, so all your goofy arguments about the woman making a choice and using mifepristone, I can make the same arguments for your dick pills. You want to do this on chlorine? I mean, you want to do this on fluoride? I can do it on chlorine and chloramides. Chloramides are just fixated chlorines. They last longer, so they clean longer lengths of the pipe and bigger of the system. By the time you hit your pipe, the chlorine is in tiny parts per million. Like you most jurisdictions, unless you've got really old pipes and they use a lot of it, you can't even smell or taste it. Um, if it's done right, it shouldn't have the swimming pool effect. Neither should your swimming pool if it's done right, by the way. So yeah, we're in this huge disinformation. Like Trump on the Air Force One, going back to Kimmel. Oh, it's illegal for them to make fun of me. No, it's not. Hustler Magazine Incorporated versus Jerry Falwell. Unanimous. You can't literally take absurdity and comedy and turn it into tort and crime just because you're offended. Okay. If the claim was based on absurdity, like the hustler cartoon was based on absurdity, would anybody actually believe that Jerry Falwell was having sex with his mother in an outhouse? The justices actually asked that. And who would believe that? Are you? They're asking the attorney, but are you asserting that somebody would actually believe that cartoon? And they go, no, it's a preposterous circumstance for a cheap laugh. And the justices were like, yeah, exactly, a cheap laugh. That's not a tort. That's not a crime. Tort, civil offense, criminal offense. They're like, no, this isn't a tort. They're like, no, it's not a tort. I'm just expanding. It's not a crime either. Um, so this is already adjudicated. And this is what's scary about things like dogs. And that's why I'm scared as a guy when it comes to dogs. If you can just throw out recognized science and replace it with hokum, what else can you throw out? What other privacy rights or what medicine that I have to be involved in? Can you just have a government agent sit in my doctor's office and go, no, no, you can't have that. No, no. And I used to joke that if I was rich, I'd give like reporters $100,000 in case they got fired or something later. If they would ask me real questions of people, okay? Like, why don't they ask Mitch McConnell and some of those other, quasi-theocratic jerk-offs? Well, we're so concerned that doctors are doing things wrong. Why don't we require that when men get a prostate exam, they're not actually having gay anal sex? So that means, all that has to be recorded in 1080p HD video. Those videos have to be submitted up to the government for the review to make sure you're not doing that queer thing, and the doctor's not doing a queer thing with you. Okay, because if you can't touch those doctors, how are we trusting your doctor? Everybody's got to be safe. We could totally make that argument. I would love somebody to ask that question. That would be just fantastically cool. And do it with a completely straight face. And they're going like, why? You're asking for government control of medical procedures and a specific medical procedure. A specific medical procedure that you have maligned through disinformation and misinformation and redefining or scarifying certain medical terms. Like, I recently learned that a D&C is used for a whole bunch of things, including an abortion, but not only an abortion. So when you have politicians going, we got to get rid of those D&C abortion techniques. Now it's techniques you're going to get rid of, even when you don't know what those techniques are for. I didn't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an OBGYN. I have to watch Mama Dr. Jones and read Dr. Jen Guntner. And, when it comes to OBGYN, no offense to male OBGYNs, but all my kids were delivered by male OBGYNs. They were great. They were wonderful doctors, super smart, super caring, great by my side manner, great with my family. But for information in this day and age, I only watch the women with doctorates and licenses. Like, I love Mama Dr. Jones. She's just a massively good source of information. And I do like the way she presents it. And Dr. Jen is spot on. Yeah, listen to what she's saying. She's more militant than about it than Mama Doctor. It's like, hey, I'm more animated and I do my thing, so I'm not going to criticize your content like that way. But I'm saying like, yeah, she's in your face about it more. And I read that, I'm like, nodding, yep, 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 yep to that too. Yep. I do not want government agents sitting in a hospital making decisions. I don't even want insurance agents there or their middlemen. Doctors should be making medical decisions, just like principals should be schools of schools. Principals should be in charge of schools, not hens clubs, not moms for liberty, not the hippies. Because this is the strange thing for me in New England back in the early 70s. The hippies would show up to school board meetings saying exactly what MAGA says and the far right says about vaccines. Same thing, identical speak, nearly word for word. You know, it comes around, it cycles back from the left to the left right orthodoxy. We're weird. We're really weird. That's why I gave up on the parties. They just keep going back and forth. I know their histories and I know the falsehood. Like some of the far right would go, well, you got to remember, Democrats were the ones who supported Jim Crow because they were the whack job far right authoritarian party back then. The liberals were the more liberal. I mean, Republicans were more the liberals. Then they switched because they're all crazy. They don't stick to anything. They just, how do we get you to vote for us so I can have an easy job yelling at people and not really fixing anything? I mean, we obviously did things earlier where we wouldn't have like Eisenhower interstate system. We wouldn't have giant seaports that can make things. But now we argue about just simply maintaining that highway system. Like all the right wingers who complained about the infrastructure bill. And then I'm in Nebraska and like, I don't know, 80, 100 miles of road is dug up back to Mother Earth. They're replacing everything, including the bedrock for the highway. And I'm like, good. They transport a lot of stuff on this highway. Okay. Whole bunch of stuff comes down this highway, a lot of heavy stuff. Okay. Why don't we build a good road that businesses can use to create good commerce? All for that. Okay. They bitched up a storm, did their A block interviews, did their spot interviews on the rotunda, just went mental how this was, socialism. And I'm like, they're seizing the means of production by maintaining a road and rebuilding bridges that are about to fall down. Are you fucking stupid? Why? Why do you do this? And then of course they go back home and praise the money that's coming in from everything they argued against. Because this is the grand thing for them. The money still comes, even when they're being performative assholes. Because they're being performative assholes for the primaries. Because the general public doesn't show up to the primaries. The more politically devout and fringe show up to primaries. That's why we need absolutely open primaries and none of this ranked choice voting shit. Open primaries, open elections. You know, make sure you got a receipt. For your ballot. Mail-in ballots are good. This is the You're going to go down another whole rabbit hole. The whole election. What the hell are they going to try to do to the election? That's scary. They can really fuck things up fast. Just on the fear factor. I studied this a little while back about what are the real impacts when like we do the like international monitoring for voting, and one of it is just getting rid of the intimidation, making people understand they have the freedom to vote. And that's another thing we all got to go behind and remember. Um, if you don't like the way the last election went or the election before that went, realize that those elections went to Trump because of the people who didn't vote. Okay, so they're going to get their faithful. because they use marketing and propaganda to sell a state of being, a conceptualized reality, which will probably be real for some people, but hardly actually be for all people, or solve all our problems. Of course, um, they're marketing something different. Okay, that's what I'm saying. You got to start looking at independence, starting in right in your woods, right in your neck of the woods. You got to get people who don't have an affiliation, don't have to show up to Congress or the State House and immediately sit in a conference room and make 7 hours of calls to donors to raise money for the party. Now you're going to have to raise some money as an independent too. Yeah, I know. I'm not naive, but with today's internet and platforms like Blue Sky and Substack and YouTube and everything else, you could run a pretty low cost campaign and get a big voice out there quick. If you could actually base your things on independent ideas, not accusation about how the other side fucked everything up, I think we could have a better discussion and make a better decision on who the better candidates are. Okay. And I think the parties are an obstacle to that. I'm not saying they're the only problem. And I'm not saying they're the reason why everything's so bad, but they're a big contributing factor. Sure. Okay. I babbled enough. I obviously feel the medicine kicking in, because World News Now is on, and that's the late news. Thank you, Lori, for joining me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for people in the future who watch this, because I do get some replays on these later on. And say, be pro First Amendment, be pro free speech, be independent, but also be for all the amendments. Remember, it's a system. We have to stand up for the institution, that framework that built everything else. If the framework falls apart, we're all screwed. Okay. And even though I'm not a fan of Kimmel, still not after watching the show. Just I would not log in every night to watch it. Okay. Um, but I'm glad he's back on the air. I'm glad the First Amendment got a win, and it was a huge win. That really helped the ratings blow through the roof to really blow back in Carr's face, because Carr and Trump were really fucking idiots about this. So, yay, free speech. Go America. Until next time, think about it.